The years of my life. 2022, 23 years of working as an entertainer, I would say. Imagine this. Tina Turner is ready to take the stage while a boisterous audience waits. Sequins blazing under the lights, her shoes hitting the floor like war drums. And voila. However, there is a list of names behind the scenes that chills her to the bone. She never spoke in public. She was not required to. Her quiet was more incisive than most people's cries. However, those who knew her well knew one thing about her. She didn't want to hear six of those names. There were six artists who went too far. Furthermore, Tina Turner's hatred for someone wasn't a fleeting animosity. It was war. Ike Turner, the man who began as her partner and turned into her nightmare, was the first name on that list. After finding her, he destroyed her. Pfui. Tina's career was not the only thing influenced by Ike Turner. He made an effort to possess it. Promise, soul, rhythm, and unadulterated fire were the foundations of their collaboration. However, the harmony was torment, abuse, tyranny, and dread behind closed doors. He controlled her every action, her finances, and her wardrobe. He hushed her, humiliated her, and beat her. He used music as a weapon and love as a leash. The world witnessed a formidable pair. Tina's life was a nightmare, complete with sequins and high heels. He forced her to smile through shattered ribs and sang through bruises. He assured her that no one else would believe her or want her. And she believed him for a time. Tina, however, did not shatter. She took off running. With only 36 cents and a gas station credit card, she fled the empire he had built on her suffering one night in 1976, barefoot and covered in blood. She ate from vending machines, slept in motels, and pieced herself back together, voice by voice by voice. And it wasn't out of sympathy that she eventually revealed what he had done to the world. Power was regained. For years, she would not mention his name. She didn't do it with resentment when she did. With a blade of truth, that is, and the myth came to an end because of how deeply the truth pierced. In her story, Ike Turner was more than simply a bad guy. The cage from which she escaped was him. The legend she once admired before he made fun of her suffering was the next name on her blacklist, Bowie David. It was intended to be a clash of creativity. One stage, two icons. The force of electric chemistry is unstoppable. However, Tina never forgot the boundary Bowie breached at a late-night party in her early 18s. Was laughing, boisterous, and high. As he joked about the industry, celebrity, and then her, a crowd gathered around him. Character building, he said, referring to her history with Ike. There was silence in the room. Tina stopped. Her entire body stiffened. She gave a grin, but it was a scream-hiding smile. He attempted to dismiss it. I think I'm pretty. I'm talented and in good health. I can support anyone, regardless of their race, or if they said it was a harmless joke. However, Tina had no place in her life for someone who made fun of her survival, no joy in abuse, and no jokes about agony. That's when the admiration broke. The chance was lost. She never again collaborated with him, not when the producers pleaded, not when supporters begged. Because Tina believed that scars were sacred and that it was unacceptable to make fun of them. Before ego turned friendship into rivalry, she once referred to this woman as her sister. Franklin, Artha. Both queens were ferocious, but behind the spotlights and glitter, there was a simmering conflict behind the crowns. As Tina gained influence in the late 16s, Artha perceived a danger. Without sparks, it would be impossible for two titans of soul music to coexist. People in the industry recall the strain. Two divas were booked on the same award shows, but they only watched and never spoke. According to reports, Artha said to a producer, "She screams, I sing." That statement turned to become a legend and a point of contention. Tina felt and heard it, but she never retaliated in the media. Rather, she ignited the stage with flames. With. Every ovation was her response, and every performance was her counterargument. Over time, the stress increased. Seldom did they meet, and when they did, it was cold masquerading as grace. Two queens who refused to bow, no words, no smiles. In 1983, Tina refused Artha's offer of a well-known duet without hesitation. Silence, no scandal, no shadow. Tina Turner did not play pretend. She also didn't argue when someone questioned her value. She lived longer. A pop star then attempted, and nearly succeeded, to steal her thunder. Madonna. By the middle of the 18s, Madonna was well known, shock-driven, sensual, and bold. Critics also said that she was imitating Tina when she performed in leather with wild hair and choreographed fire. The inspiration didn't bother Tina. The disrespect was what she detested. She had cleared the path for powerful female stage ownership, but she received dismissal rather than appreciation. Madonna regarded previous artists as outdated in interviews. Tina, who was at the top of the charts and in her 40s at the time, took it personally. Fully took it personally. She had rebuilt herself from the ground up, redefining what it meant to be a woman in rock and clawing her way out of trauma. That wasn't shade to be given that label. Eraser was the object. She didn't have to return the clap. She let private dancers' success speak for itself, mew for itself. What she never set out was screamed by the charts. The coldness persisted, though. In 1992, they happened to meet at a gala. They exchanged no words despite the dresses, diamonds, and megastars. Nothing but silence. No grin, no nod. More painful than a headline, that is. Respect wasn't optional, Toyna, and the door permanently closed when Madonna refused to offer it. Then there was the man who abandoned her after promising to help her. Tina was once referred to as the only female voice strong enough for rock by Phil Spector, the Wall of Sound producer. The Wall of Sound producer. It was a promise, accompanied compliment, time in the studio, artistic authority, something enormous. Because Phil Spector was more than simply a producer, she trusted him. He made kings. However, he disappeared when it came time to record. No reason, no phone call. Instead, he went with Ronnie Spector. Tina learned about it via industry rumors. No apology, no explanation. After rearranging her schedule, practicing for weeks, and preparing her voice like a weapon to pierce the speakers, she suddenly fell. The silence that followed the rejection was just as humiliating to her as the rejection itself. Within a noisy industry, the biggest insult of all was that silence. She didn't mention him again. In subsequent interviews, she remained silent when questioned about Spector. She refrained from ranting. She said nothing in response. The type that makes a room go dark. The kind that leaves wounds raw and discussions abruptly ending. Because betrayal wasn't simply personal in Tina's world. It was polished. Spector had also gone too far. And lastly, Elton John, the band that made her patience run the gamut. It initially appeared to be a musical pairing made in heaven. Both symbols are unstoppable forces and larger than life. Elton and Tina, however, were a tempest waiting to happen behind the scenes, with lightning in every glance and thunder in every remark. Rehearsals for a planned TV special that aimed to bring together two periods of showmanship marked the beginning of their rivalry in the late 18th century. However, the result was far from harmonious. Tina was demanding, determined, and not content to be mediocre. Each stride had to be precise, each note purposeful. Known for his exuberance and meticulousness, Elton disliked being told what to do. He lost his temper when Tina criticized him for being unprepared, accusing her of acting like a general and calling her impossible. There was silence in the room. Hours of yelling, smashed doors, and one damaged microphone stand ensued after the explosion. They barely made it through the performance. They grinned on stage, but they never looked at each other. Later on, Elton acknowledged that the conflict with Tina was explosive. Ow. Although Tina never made any public remarks, her silence was sufficient. According to those close to her, she thought he was clever, but brittle, creative but exhausting. A guy who preferred the lights over the music. The type of collaborator who confused spectacle for soul and volume for depth. Tina's avoidance of sharing a stage with someone was a protective measure rather than an act of ego. Furthermore, the altercation with Elton was simply too memorable, too loud, and too flaming to ignore. A survivor was not all that Tina Turner was. She looked stunning on high heels. Although she didn't initiate fights, she ended them calmly, brutally, and without regret. Even though these 6 names aren't mentioned in the liner notes, they influenced the wall she created, the stage she controlled, and the stillness she selected. They weren't merely competitors. They served as reminders of the suffering, treachery, and obstacles she had to overcome. She danced around the shadows of those she would never forgive, while the rest of the world danced to her melodies. Only when it was convenient for her did she put forgiveness on like armor. Additionally, she kept certain wounds exposed as a warning because some resentments never go away. They fuel and ignite. She never turned around to face the fire, Tina. She strolled right through them without ever getting burned.